Hello and good afternoon, morning, or whenever you're watching this. We're going to be chatting about from pushback to partnership. And I would love for you to join this session. Right here is the session URL where you're going to be able to join and collaborate with other educators to really reflect and think about the pushback that we receive and how we can move to partnership. Maybe you're an educator that is a teacher and you're getting a lot of pushbacks from students or parents. Maybe you're a coach or a leadership, principal, district office, and you're getting pushback maybe from teachers or parents, or maybe even your students are having a little bit of resistance towards that initiative that you're trying to break through. We're going to explain how we can take that resistance, that focus, and how we can motivate and move more into that partnership role. My name is Stephanie Howe, and I'm a teaching and learning coordinator, and I would love to connect with you. So feel free to reach out to me. My email is right here, and you can also follow and connect with me on social media. If you want to talk more, feel free to book a time with me. But right here is the link again. So again, pause the video. Make sure you grab that link. It's going to be available even after today's session, where you're able to really reflect and think about what is that pushback that I might be feeling. So again, pause that video and grab that link. First, I would love for you to grab the text box. It's over here on your left-hand side, and I just want to know, what goals do you have for today's session? Some of the goals that I experienced that I wanted to achieve when I was going through really focusing on that resistance was I wanted to help my teachers. I didn't always have a say in that resistance or in that initiative, but I wanted to help my teachers navigate through the new initiative, the new requirements, or whatever it was. So maybe that's my goal, is I just want to learn, how can I help? How can I navigate and support my teachers through these new requirements? Maybe you want to help your teachers with new ideas and you don't want that resistance when you're trying to incorporate those new ideas. Maybe your goal is just to learn. But again, I would just love to know, what made you click this link? Why are you here? What are you hoping to get out of it? Maybe you're hoping to get new approaches so teachers don't feel like they're being evaluated or we're judging them. You're just hoping that you can get that support that you might need as a coach. Maybe you're a teacher and you're having a lot of resistance to a new curriculum. Again, I would love for you to just kind of pause and think through, what is it that can really support you in those next steps? Now, let's pause and consider. And feel free to pause the video at any of these points where you want additional time to reflect and go through kind of thinking through, why am I thinking this? Or why am I maybe feeling this? Or what are my goals? I now want you to consider a curriculum. Maybe it's a teaching strategy, or maybe it's even a classroom management strategy that you have resisted. What maybe were your reasons? Okay, so for me, I was an intervention specialist and my district was starting to implement Eureka Math. So again, you're going to grab the text box and add your resistance to that curriculum, strategy, or classroom management that you resisted. So again, it was Eureka Math. And to me, it was a really scripted program. And our curriculum director actually told us to have a timer. And we would have to time our students with what it said on the timer. And as an intervention specialist, I knew that my students didn't learn at the same pace. And so I really, really struggled with that idea of following this scripted curriculum. And my students just didn't seem to be understanding it. So again, I just want you to think about a time where you have felt that resistance. Maybe yours is you have, students that are resisting some type of learning. Maybe it's homework, maybe it's station rotation. There's a lot of classroom management issues. Maybe there's resistance from your teachers if you're an instructional coach to use technology. Maybe if you're a principal, there's some resistance when it comes to teachers just always doing what they're used to doing. So again, I would love for you to just pause and consider, what resistance have you experienced? You're going to grab that text box and I would love for you to add that on here. into this document. And now we're going to kind of explore. So now that we're going to explore, we're going to talk about this term, the cognitive process research on change. So there is some research when it comes to change, right? There's a lot of resistance when things are changing or there's a new initiative. And so there's 3 things that I like to point out. Individuals need to have information processed to them differently. So that's the first one, is difference in information. There's different needs. We all kind of maybe have different personalities and styles. And so when it comes to that, we really need to focus in on how are we going to communicate this change to support that individual. And I've seen principals, they communicate it out in an email blast or just to a whole group in a staff meeting. And everybody processes information just a little bit different based on our personalities, based on our initial needs that we have as people. So again, this is kind of important to note that there are differences in information needed. Next, we also have people process and react to information very differently, right? Some people process and they're excited about the change. Other people process and they're really upset. And so we need to remember that. And I know for me, a lot of times when we were processing new information, we didn't have time to share our emotions, share how we were feeling, share the questions, the concerns, the what ifs. It was just, this is what you're doing. Here's the next step. And so I think sometimes we need to allow that uncomfortable feeling of allowing people to share what are they resisting? Why are they reacting this way? And allowing them to really kind of think through that process of change that is about to be occurring. And last, factors that increase stress. We need to think about all of the different factors when we're expecting this change, and we need to really consider how this might affect individuals. And a quick note is that when resistance to change will increase when these individual needs are not met. Okay, so this research that has been conducted has found that when these initial needs are not met, you're going to see an increase when it comes to individuals maybe going through that curriculum and not excited about it, or going through and they're failing to meet their needs. And it's just kind of, again, an email blast, or everybody has a staff meeting, gets told something new. So again, we really need to consider the individual. We need to allow people to process and react to the information. We also need to think about the stress factor that people might encounter throughout this new strategy or this new change. So that is the cognitive process research on change. Now that we kind of know this background, let's go into the strategies to where we can support our educators or students when they are having to implement change in their classroom. Strategy 1 is we want to communicate, right? We know people are different. I'm really into personality tests. And so with this, we really need to understand the person that we're working with. And when we know that, we're going to approach this person and really start to tailor what we're coaching them on. So I'd love for you to just kind of take a moment and think about these different strategies. The first one we have is coach like a champion, okay? This person, they might get overwhelmed when you suggest way too many resources. They just need one strategy. They need to go and do that strategy. They also might need you to co-teach with them and support them through implementing that new change. They also might feel a little bit overwhelmed. And when they do that, they also sometimes will think when they have an initiative, they need to do it all, right? So for this person, when you have a new strategy, new curriculum, new initiative, it might be a good idea to kind of take that angle, break it down into smaller pieces, and begin to coach like a champion, where this person just tries one new idea. Once they've mastered it, okay, here's the next piece. So you're really breaking down the piece of that initiative that seems huge. You're breaking down that elephant. Instead of in one bite, you're actually taking it and putting it into multiple little bites to support that teacher. There's also coach as a useful resource. This is where you want to skip the theory, right? These people really love the activities. They're excited to try new things. And so a lot of times with this coach as a useful resource, we might kind of share all the data with them. They trust you, maybe. They trust you as a coach that you've done all that data for them and you've researched and you know that this strategy works. So they just want to be able to say, hey, here's a research-based strategy that works. They want to have that lesson. They're going to try it right away. And they want you to be able to answer any questions that they have. Okay. This teacher might enjoy you coach teaching with them, but they might be able to really just kind of say, okay, I can do this. I can try this by myself. And if it works, that strategy that you share and they have those quick wins, they're going to be back for more. Okay. So that's that kind of useful resource. We also got that expert where this person, they need to know the theory, research, and even data behind what you're suggesting to them. They need to know, why am I implementing this? And what is the research back piece that you're explaining to me as to why I need to maybe take this and actually use it within my curriculum, use it within my classroom, right? They want to make sure that this has been tested and others have found success before they have. They're going to have a lot of questions. And so you need to be prepared to listen and try to address them as best as you can. There's also coach like a mentor, where this person wants a brainstorm partner. They want to sit down with you in a planning session and they want to take your ideas, their ideas, and combine both of those ideas to make something really incredible. They really love practical tips and they really like to work together to create that lesson plan with you alongside of them. So now that we know those four, I would love for you to come into Add Media. And once you're in Add Media, towards the bottom, there's a camera tool, and I would love for you to smile. And I would love to see, which one do you resonate with more? For me, I am that coach as a useful resource. I can give me that lesson and I can just try it tomorrow, right? I listen to podcasts, I hear the research, I'm cool with it. And then I'm like, oh, I want to try that. I want to try that right away. I read a book. I really like when it's practical and I can implement one strategy that's just going to work right away. So again, think about which one you are. You're going to go into Add Media, use that camera tool and take a picture and add it right onto the document. So maybe you're that champion where you are like, okay, just give me one strategy. I'm feeling really overwhelmed by this end goal, but just give me one strategy that's going to work. Come in and co-teach with me. I need that support. Maybe you're like me where you're that useful resource where you're like, okay, I can skip that theory. Just show me what's going to work. Let's go. I'm an oversharer. I like all the things. And I want to be able to just kind of test and explore in my classroom. Maybe you prefer to be coached like an expert where you want the theory, you want the research, you want the best practices. Maybe you want the teacher down the hall to do it first to make sure that her scores show improvement before you just jump on board. Maybe you want to coach like the mentor, where you want a brainstorming session and you want to combine all of your different ideas together, right? These are kind of different people. And a lot of times when we just deliver information, we might just reach one of these people. But if we can start to coach with knowing those initiatives and meet the needs of all of the different personality types out there, we're going to find more success because we're able to communicate and explain that topic to each of these different people. So here we go. We've got this scenario where we have a teacher, and this teacher is seeking advice. So this teacher wants to know how to improve student engagement using technology. Okay. So again, they want to know more about it. So if I'm coaching like a champion, what would you do? If you're coaching like a useful resource, what would you do? Like an expert, like a mentor. I would love for you to pause this video and really reflect and use either the comment tool or the text box over on your left-hand side to add your ideas for your next steps. What would you do to support this student or this teacher when it comes to seeking the advice of how they can improve student engagement using technology? How would you change from person to person when you're trying to support them? Right? So for coach like a champion, what I might do is I might come in and I might have a lesson idea and I might just take it really slow, right? Take the lesson very, very slow. And I might break apart collaboration or engagement? What's an easy win, right? I might consider that. What is an easy win that I can have this student kind of implement? The teacher is going to feel a lot of success. They're going to have an easy win. I'm also going to come in and co-teach, right? Because if we're doing something engaging, they might be worried about classroom management. And so I'm going to be able to be there to support by co-teaching and really supporting that educator along the way. We also have coach as a useful resource. So when it comes to that resource, how might I support that teacher, right? So here, I might create the resource for the teacher. And when I do that, do their students maybe feel more engaged when I use that? So again, I might have something where I'm like, hey, I listened to a podcast and I thought of you, right? I might use that kind of sit-in starter or that pickup line. I use that a lot, and it worked a lot for these teachers that are really that coach as a useful resource. When it comes to the coach as an expert, what might I do here, right? I might suggest to this person Heidi's research, right? I might provide research-based strategies when it comes to collaboration and feedback, when it comes to engagement, when it comes to supporting my students. I also might really just focus, right, on the important parts of it where it comes and showing them how this works. And when I'm coaching like a mentor, I'm going to brainstorm. I'm going to meet with this teacher during their planning time, and I am going to brainstorm with this teacher how I can best support them and their students, right? Maybe we start with just an icebreaker first, where it's low cognitive. So what you might notice is that sometimes when I'm getting deep into these different scenarios, I can take an initiative such as engagement, and I can take it across all 4 of these different places. Typically, I might start with this coach like a mentor. I might find that teacher first. The reason I find this teacher first is because they're a great brainstorm partner. They have got lots of great ideas. And so we can work together to develop the lesson plan for that standard. So this might be my first focus when I'm coaching. Once that lesson plan is done, I shoot an email or go to that person that likes the useful resource. Hey, me and this teacher were working on this idea. I think you'll really love it, right? I might make some tweaks here and there, but that person's going to love it. The lesson is ready to go for them to use. We've also got coach like a champion, right? I can schedule to co-teach with this teacher. And I'm able to use that same lesson that I shared with the useful resource and the mentor, and I'm able to really go in and co-teach and model it. From there, I can make adaptions. I've tested it. I've tried it. I've got case studies to share with this coach like an expert. So see how you can take one strategy and really start to plant those seeds among all the different personality types. However, who you start with, I think is really important. For me, I want to start with that coach like a mentor. Then I'm going to move into that. Here's a resource for that useful resource teacher. And then I'm going to go into that champion. I'm going to co-teach with them. One thing to note is you want to keep going back to the mentor and the useful resource and ask them, how did it go? How did that lesson go? Gather their feedback, because that's going to be really important when you talk to that coach like an expert. And just out of curiosity, which one was maybe more difficult for you, right? I am that coach like a useful resource, and I would say I'm also that mentor. I love a good brainstorm session, but I'm also like, I can just create this, and I love to create and share out. However, my struggle was the person that coached like an expert. That was my struggle when I was coaching, right? Because I was just like, just try it. Stop asking questions and just give it a go. And that person had a lot of questions, a lot of resistance towards me. And again, I wasn't meeting their needs. I wasn't showing them the data of, look at the pre-test, look at how my students did on the post-test, right? And if I went back into some of those classrooms where I had that resistance, I would be able to really show them that data, the research, the case studies of what made this lesson better than anything they've ever tried before. And so now that we've kind of gone through those 4 different types of personality tests, hopefully you were able to pause and kind of consider what you might do when it comes to seeking advice on how to improve student engagement using technology. So we've got this what. right? I want you to think about, what do you notice about your personal style? You're going to grab the comment box and you're going to type. So again, I want you to just think, what is it about you that makes you unique, right? I'm kind of that mentor. I'm that resource person. I really like to collect and share information. So that's kind of me. So again, just take a moment, pause the video, type something down. What makes you think about you? If you don't like all these comments on the side, you can go to this eyeball up here and you can hide off-page comments. And what happens is if you click on these little dots, you'll see the comment and you can actually respond back to people as well. So what, right? So what has that consequence been? Well, for me, I have for sure overwhelmed a lot of teachers. That has been my biggest thing. Is I have overwhelmed so many different teachers by saying, here you go, right? Here's the research. Here's the activities, right? So again, time might be a barrier or consequence. You might not feel like you have time to kind of use that strategy that I used where I started with the mentor and then I went to the useful resource. It really does take some time management and prep to look at what are we going to be teaching? When can I meet with this person? And honestly, this person and I had a standing meeting where we met every single week, right? And so that was something that I had to figure out, was using my time wisely and making sure that I could support them. I also really struggle with making people not feel overwhelmed, right? So now I want you to pause and study your opposite. So again, my opposite is this coach like an expert. Maybe yours is the mentor, the useful resource, or that champion. And I want you to just pause for a moment. Identify 2 to 3 actions that you're going to do to better cater this person. What are you hoping to achieve when it comes to supporting this person, right? For me, I need to slow down. I need to be able to slow down and meet this person exactly where they're at and maybe offer to co-teach with them or model, right? I need to just slow down a lot. Again, you're going to pause, think about the what, the so what, the now what, and how would you support your learners through that? Okay, so again, strategy 1 was really focusing on communicating to people. Everybody has different information. And so when we can really meet the needs of how we communicate, how we share resources, how we explain, resistance is going to be a lot decreased when we try to support that. Now we have strategy 2. And I want you to think about, how do we move from judgment to curiosity? How do I move from judging all of these different teachers where I'm like, oh my gosh, this teacher keeps asking me questions. They are so annoying, right? How do I go from what's wrong with this person to how are they different? So again, I want you to just kind of take a moment and pause and consider, what can we do from moving from what is wrong with this person to ask ourselves, how are we different? This promotes acceptance and understanding when we move this shift from judgment to curiosity. The next piece is we really need to move from dictating to empowering, right? We need to shift from saying, this is the way that I've always done it, right? That's something that we constantly might hear other teachers say. And how do we move to, what do I need to implement this strategy? This encouraged differentiation and personalization for that teacher. So again, instead of just asking, this is the way that we've always done it, shift it to, what do you need to do to implement this strategy? Do you need me to co-teach with you? Do you need me to send you resources? Do you want me to send you the podcast that I listened to? Do you want me to send you the article? Or do you want to talk to the teacher that implemented this and saw a lot of success in this strategy? So again, move away from this is the way that to do it to asking, what does this person need in order to implement this new initiative? Now, I want you to think about resistance to collaboration. How do we move from this won't work for my students, right? Where we often hear teachers talk about that, to let's figure this out. What do we need to do to make this work? So again, how do we shift from This won't work for my students to, let's figure this out. What do I need to do to make this work? It's going to create that collaboration and problem solving within our classroom. So just a reminder, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. We need a more personalized, empowering, and collaborative coaching experience to support all three of our kind of focus here when we're thinking about that collaborative problem solving. And for this activity, I would love for you to just pause and kind of think through, how can I move away from judgment to curiosity? How can I move away from dictating to empowering my teachers? How can I move from resistance to collaboration? So again, just pause for a moment and really take a deep breath and take that in, because when we shift the way that we think and that we collaborate when it comes to problem solving, we're going to see a lot more exciting activities and learning taking place, and we're able to shift those perspectives. It's going to support the way that we respond when teachers might be struggling. So that is where that number 2, processing and reacting. Give teachers time to just say, and don't judge them, right? Allow them to say, create that psychological safe space where they feel comfortable to explain what they're feeling during this initial change. Allow them to express that they might be struggling with a student. Allow them to place their frustrations and share with you in that safe space, and you're able to hopefully keep that confidential between you and that person. Strategy number 3, right? We're moving into that last piece where we're going to start to inspire change with evidence. And when it comes to this piece, I really want you to think about, how might I help teachers see how Cami or something can support instruction, right? How can I make them see that? So we want to inspire that change, but we want to provide that evidence that shows, hey, you did that and it was successful, right? Everyone loves being able to check something off a box or seeing how their pre-test scores rise when the students took the post-test scores. And so again, I just want you to kind of think about, how can I focus to support teachers when I want them to start implementing this strategy? What can I do if I need them to kind of complete something? So whatever your initiative thing is, add that right here. How might I, ... And then think about how you might do that by supporting all 4 different types of personalities here. After that, think about, what assessment data can I use to support? So here's where you're able to get really creative. This could be assessments, formative or summative. This could be surveys, right? This could be observations from me or the principal maybe. This is a great place to really consider what is it that I can do? What data can I do to support this teacher, right? How can I get creative with what we're tracking to show them? Maybe it's a data binder. Maybe it's that observation. Maybe it is something else, right? And that's where I really want you to just kind of pause and think about, what assessment data, what am I going to use to show them that the return on their investment for doing the time, for them to learn a new technology tool, for them to be able to do something is really beneficial because they've taken the time. They've taken that time, and look at where the students are now. So again, I really just want teachers to kind of process that and think about that. If you're looking for an observation assignment, here's one that I'm going to post over on the side, but this can be a great way to track your observations that are more focused. You can put different activities that you're really focusing on that your district believes are high impact. You can provide that DOK level of questions. What questions are the teachers asking? Are they open? Are they closed? Did they post their expectations? Where is this kind of happening? And then I love to use this and provide detailed feedback to my teachers in real time. So again, that can be a great way to really support, and that video's right here in the description, has the resource down in the description. So if you're looking for that resource, it is over here, and you can just grab that link over here and you're able to access that resource. And then again, consider your opposite. When we're looking at this, my opposite is that expert. How can I use that model to really support that opposite. Maybe your opposite is that mentor. How can you schedule time to brainstorm? Maybe yours is that champion. How can you start to pause and break down that initiative into smaller pieces for that person to swallow? How can you provide maybe one quick new resource that that teacher can share? So again, think about your opposite and your approach for how you're going to inspire change with evidence or with a new plan in mind. So again, pause the video and really begin to reflect on those pieces. Next, I want you to think about what's one small thing that you're going to start to do maybe tomorrow, right? For me, it's I need to find out where my teachers are, right? I need to figure out where are my teachers at. You can use the text box or the comment tool. Maybe you need to do a pre or post test or a needs survey. Maybe you want to kind of meet teachers and start goal setting with them. Maybe your next step is you're like, I know I don't connect with that expert teacher. I need to start research and I need to start thinking how I can share this information with them. Maybe your struggle is supporting that teacher that needs one small step because they feel very overwhelmed by all of it. How can you support that teacher? What's one quick win that you can experience on Monday? And then I want you to think about, what is that someday goal? What's that big goal that you're going to strive for? For me, I want to maybe model a lesson for a teacher. Maybe I want to co-teach. Maybe I want to try Stephanie's idea on starting with the teacher that likes the mentor and moving to the useful resource, to the champion, to the expert. Maybe that's something I want to try, right? Maybe I want to build relationships. Maybe it's my first year coaching. So again, think about what is your next step when it comes to supporting your teachers. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Stephanie Howe, and I'm a teaching and learning coordinator. So again, if you need any support or have any questions, please reach out to me. I would love to have a conversation about how I can support you and your teachers. Right here is the link. So again, if you need that link, it's right here. I would love for you to join this collaborative document to gain all the resources and activities and to allow you time to process and think about how can I move from pushback to partnership. And you can do that by understanding your approach and tailoring your coaching. Think through collaborative problem solving and inspiring change with evidence. Thanks for joining me today.